Intro. The reports concerning Han Mingyeong, the daughter of ambassador and politician Han Unjo, from the Samhan Confederacy, Korea. She joined her father in Nerigos, Norway, Lower Germany, the Netherlands, and Rome before settling in her residence in Wyrisiog, Seoul. Compilation written and translated by Marcus Piliers, a Helvetian auxiliary officer stationed at the naval troops at Lugdium Caninefates, Katwijk. 1. It has been a long cold journey from Samhan all the way to Nerigos. 2 weeks by ship through the Polar Sea and 8 days by race horses through the mountainous lands above Han Empire. They arrived. At the Cape they see a small town, together with the emblem of the Nerigos. It's still evening. At arrival the captain converses with the local chief of the village. We are salesmen from the east. Our country is called Samhan, the Three Hands. We have come to establish an embassy in Nerigos. We request you to receive us and our gifts. One of the servants opens a box and gives 200 Chinese silver coins to the chief. The coins are new and clean. The chief commands them to wait. After a short 15 minutes the chief and the elders return with an invitation to a supper. The travelers are brought to a local inn. Among them are the captain, who is a former navy who fought several wars before retiring. 5 of his servants. Unjo, a skilled politician and family member of the chieftain of Beach. His wife and 2 sons, his concubine and their daughter Mingyeong. Mingyeong is 17 years old, has dark long hair, pale skin and a slim figure. Her mother is the daughter of a wealthy farmer at the northern Han River. Unjo was commanded by the ministers of the Mahan Senate to marry the young girl to strengthen the political bonds of his clan. The Nerigos are curious about the foreigners, especially because they heard rumors of their wealth. The next day 2 chariots are made ready to transport the Asians to the capital of Nerigos, which is in the south, 3 days away. The servants of the captain are fluent in Greek, so they assist Unjo as interpreters when he takes office. 2. After 3.5 days they arrive at the capital of the Nerigos people. The capital is located near the mountains, at a thin river, that flows toward the Great Bay. The capital is fortified with a thick wall and there are several castles in the city. They were brought towards a palace, where Unjo and the 5 servants were signed to come. They appeared in a courthouse, where a minister of finance was waiting on them. The minister took the seat and gave them audience. One of the Asian servants hands over a large document, written in both Chinese characters as in Greek. Another one presents 2 boxes. And another one speaks. Your Excellency, we are men from the country Samhan, which is a confederation of 3 federations of chiefdoms, between the Han River and the Sea of Wa. Our confederation is a replacement of the former Kingdom Ji, which fell apart due to civil wars. 250 years ago, we had a firm economic relation with Northern European tribes. We, now as the Samhan, wish to re-establish these economic relations. We desire to form a treaty between the courts of Nerigos and Cimbria, and the chiefdoms of Samhan. Our interest are tin, bronze and iron from the mines of Nerigos. Also the beer, grain and bear skins which you have in abundance. We desire to export rice, slaves, pottery and tropical Chinese fruits towards you. We request the King of Nerigos and his lords and statesmen, to permit us to build an embassy at the Great Bay, where the harbors are. We, in return, offer the same space for Nerigos ambassadors in our cities. The costs for the maintenance of the embassy will be financed by the King of Mahan. The minister opens the boxes. There are old documents of treaties between Scandinavian princes and the former G-diocese. He reads of a treaty between several elite Nerigos families and the ambassador of the G kingdom. In another box he finds golden plates, decorated in a Roman fashion. The men are sent away for 3 hours. Afterwards, they are summoned again. The minister answers, "You, Han Ujog, you are permitted to build your embassy in the south. The golden plates will be used as payment for the construction workers to construct your houses. The king will be informed and you will be expected to bring at least 500 natives from your homeland to Nerigos within 4 months. Furthermore, you are allowed to send 200 natives from Nerigos towards the Han River in exchange. The king will send his own ambassadors with them. We do, however, want to inform you that Nerigos and Cimbria are both under the political and economic espionage of the Roman Empire. We want you to agree with the condition that you will keep good relations with the Romans, so that we won't suffer because of our association with your government. Furthermore, we demand that you also learn the local Germanic language, in order to communicate with our business associates in Gaul, who is fully Romanized by now." The men sign several documents before they leave. 3. Within a week the embassy was built. It consists out of 5 apartment houses, 1 central palace and 2 tea houses. Around the embassy there's a hedge of wood and stone to prevent trespassing. Furthermore, a channel was dug and filled with water from the river. A small aqueduct led water from the riverside towards the embassy. And a small sewerage transported waste material further away down the river. The same week the captain and the servants returned. And 320 men were also sent on ships by the Nerigos government. Within 2 months, 20 people from the Samhan area arrived. Several of them were craftsmen, lawyers, teachers, soldiers and blacksmiths. They settled around the Great Bay and they brought much wealth with them, because each had to give a part of their possessions as payment for the journey. Within 5 years, the Samhan embassy had trades much between Nerigos and Samhan. And the population rose to 4,200 people. Due to many births, Mingyeong, the daughter of Unjo, has become 17. To celebrate her birthday, one of her elder brothers, Unjo, organizes a trip to Jerusalem for her. His choice for Jerusalem because he read about the history of King David, King Solomon and the prophets Ezekiel and Daniel, together with his Chinese friends in the G library back in Samhan. He also has met several Hebrew elders, from the 17 Hebrew Israelite villages in Samhan, who gave him an introductory course in the Hebraic language and customs. Unjo wants to visit the second temple that was constructed after the Babylonian captivity. It is common for foreigners to visit Jerusalem and there are many tourist facilities in the region. There were about 35,000 Hebrews in Samhan, which spoke the dialects from the tribes Gad and Naphtali. Each year about 3,000 Israelites leave for Jerusalem to celebrate the Passover and hundreds of Samhan people, who became proselytes, join them also. Unjo is residing in the Great Bay of Nerigos, while his children live in the Roman Germanic village named Caninefates, which is at the shores of the Roman Province Belgium, which is a part of the tribal kingdom Gaul, which is divided under the Roman administration. The northern part of the Province Belgium exists out of the country which is named Lower Germany, the living place of the three major local German tribes, the Caninefates, at the western shores, where the rivers end, the Frisian, in the north and northeastern shores, where there are also wetlands, and the Batavias, the largest of the tribes that live below the Meuse River till the highlands of the actual Kingdom Belgica, where the Belgae are living. The distance between Lugdunum Caninefatum, which is the administrative city of the Caninefates nation, and the industrial complex at the Nerigos Bay, by ship is about 3 full days when traveling by the shores of Cimbria. Bijou, the eldest of the children, lives with his wife and 2 sons, in a Samhan consulate that was opened by his father. His other siblings are living on the consulate also, together with 800 other Samhan people, professionals. They are protected by hired Roman auxiliary troops, 400 in total. Lugdunum Caninefatum is just 1/2 hour away from Lugdunum Batavarum, which serves as the juridical capital of the Batavias. In Lugdunum Caninefatum there's a Chinese library with a lot of books, maps, artifacts, art, pottery and paintings of the Chinese Empire and its client states. Mingyeong is often at the Chinese library. The majority of the Batavias are farmers and there are only several elite families, who are pro-Roman. Many Batavias are interested in the civilization of the Far East. Rice is also a product that is often required by merchant enterprises. In Batavia Mingyeong meets 2 Batavia girls. One is named C and the other Beth. C is the daughter of a military officer, which is stationed at the southern Rhine River. She is skilled in cooking, drawing and religious studies. Her best friend Beth is the daughter of a local surgeon, with many years of experience. Beth and C both met at a bathhouse near Lugdunum Batavarum, 5 years earlier. They meet Mingyeong at the Temple of Apollo in Lugdunum Batavarum at the Autumn Festival, which lasted for 1 full week. The 3 became friends and are that way for almost 1 year and 8 months. Bijou rents a race chariot to travel to Avticum, the capital of Helvetia, which will take only 2 full days. From there they will take another chariot service towards Aquileia, 4 days. In Aquileia there is another chariot service towards the district of the Thessalonians 4 days. There he is informed, there are Hebrew merchants that can transport them to Jaffa, which will take about 5 days travel. From Jaffa it's only 1 hour towards Jerusalem. In total the journey would take 12 days by chariot and 5 days by ship. They will remain in Jerusalem for 3 months before returning. The costs are 60 aureus, Roman golden coins, which in value is the same as 1250 denarii, for 15 people. C and Beth are also added to the list of travelers on the request of Mingyeong. The income of the consulate is around 200 aureus a month, of which 30 is paid unto taxes and 50 to the embassy in Nerigos. The 60 aureus are not paid from the consulate's treasury, but it's money that the Samhan thugs gained by their looting on Roman markets in Gaul. Bijou is currently the leader of the gang, due to his position as second ambassador of Samhan. The gang exists out of poor peasant boys and girls from the ghettos of Samhan who had no future back home due to their family background. They were offered by Bijou to join his family as employers to Nerigos. The 78 youth joined because they wouldn't have any other chance to travel and see more of the world. It was also an escape from their life's circumstances, especially from the labor burdens laid by rich farmers who employed their families. and by them joining the embassy they could send back money and gifts to their relatives. Bijou left with his crew on the 2nd of March and they arrived on 13th of the same month. When they arrived at Jerusalem, they rented a mansion for the next 3 months near a place called Herodium, which was a fortress built by King Herod. 4. It's the 20th of March the 19th BC. The embassy in Nerigos receives reports from Samhan. There are internal conflict within the Mahan confederacy. The chiefdoms can't agree upon the prices of the foreign goods that are sold on the market. Unjo realizes that his homeland is in a mess and that the conflicts are the result of the fact that Samhan is not a unified kingdom, but a loose covenant of chiefdoms and rich landowners, who lobby with the Chinese merchants in order to remain wealthy. Unjo decides that action must be taken. He sends out some troops to the consulate in Lower Germany to inform about his son. Within a week he receives a message that his son is in Jerusalem till the summer, together with Mingyeong. Unjo sends a ship to Samhan with the following order. My fellow countrymen, I have been an ambassador in this cold country for almost 6 years. The wealth of Samhan has increased since the economic ties with Europe were reanimated. However, the fact that we, over here in the West, are subjected to taxes to the Roman Empire causes the prices to increase in the East. The countries under Roman rule each have a centralized capital where the economy is regulated. We don't have this in Samhan, which is why there is so much confusion and frustration about the prices of foreign goods. To prevent inflation, which would lead to the debasement of our economy and the increase of the influence of the Chinese imperial court in our country, I request you all to choose a city where the economic policies will be made. The city doesn't have to become the literal capital of Samhan, something that is politically unattractive to do due to the tensions between the provinces. The city has to be located at a river, close to the sea. Also the city shouldn't be too much in the south, so it won't be raided by pirates. The Han River might be an excellent location. I will wait for your response in this matter. If needed, I will go to Rome to make a treaty if that will benefit our homeland. Bijou, my eldest, is in Jerusalem at the moment. The Jews are also important actors in the global economy. In the north of Mahan there are several Israelite villages. I would want to include some of them in our economy also. The same day that the ship departed for the Han River, Unjo receives news from the Cimbrius that there are tribal wars in Greater Germany. He is recommended not to trade with Germany for a while. The same day Unjo and his council cancels all their plans for investments in Germany. The council was also discussing whether it was wise to keep a consulate in Lower Germany. Even though it was Roman territory and there were no military conflicts there, the consulate was a financial burden and a big risk. Unjo decided that the consulate should remain for 1 more year before a decision should be made. This he did not because it was in the best interest of the Samhan community in Nerigos, but because of private reasons. He desired to be connected to Rome. 5. This is the letter sent to the Roman governor of Egypt. Greetings unto thee, Governor. As an ambassador of the Samhan Federation out of the Far East, I desire to extend economic relations with the province Egypt. I desire to found a small consulate in Alexandria and to install 7 ambassadors who will function as the economic ministers of Samhan in Egypt. Our interest is in Egyptian art, artifacts and construction workers. Our desire is to have a large apartment, guarded by 5 guards, and we request political immunity for those that enter the consulate. Greetings. Bijou. Within 5 days the governor invited Bijou over to Alexandria. The men left while leaving the women behind in Herodium. The governor received them in his private office. Bijou spoke Greek himself. Greetings, Your Excellency. Welcome, Ambassador. I received your request for a consulate in Egypt. So, you're from Samhan, which was formerly known as the Kingdom G, is that correct? Yes, sir. We have no problems with you opening your consulate in Alexandria. We will, however, demand a 20% income tax upon all the products and services that will be imported into Egypt from Samhan. The income tax will be used to pay the security guards for the consulate. Also, we permit you to have a small staff of your own here. Also, all documents must be translated in both Greek and Latin, by one of our own translators, which will be paid by us. Firstly, we would want to ask you how you are going to advance the relations between Egypt and Samhan. The distance by ship is about 2 full months to go to your country. By land it will take around 3 full weeks with the fastest horses. Even then, you would have to pass through non-Roman territory, through the land of the Sarmatians, the Magog people, the Mongolians and the Chinese Empire. As I understood, there is already a consulate in Lower Germany, in the country of the Caninefates. Yes, Your Excellency. We have our primary embassy in the Kingdom Nerigos. Our merchandise and postal service operate through shipping on the Northern Ocean at the North Pole. We travel near the shores of Northern Europe and Northern Asia. It's far quicker. And after that we take fast chariots to Samhan. Nerigos is a wealthy region. So, your consulate in Egypt is actually an extension of the primary embassy in Nerigos. Yes. Understand this well, Egypt is a Roman province. All merchandise in this region will be reported unto Rome. The emperor is the supreme leader within the empire. As a representative of the emperor, I have the authority to permit you to have a full embassy in Egypt. In that case, you and your staff will enjoy full diplomatic immunity within Egypt. I will give you a plot of land that will serve as your embassy. It will be an older building, with good furniture and connected to fresh water from aqueducts with your own private bath. You will have slaves that will sustain and support you. Egypt has around 5 million inhabitants and it's one of the most populous countries after Italy, within the empire. You will have good business opportunities here. I will report you to the imperial court tomorrow. Within 2 weeks you can officially open your embassy here. I hope I've informed you sufficiently. Yes, sir. The Samhan people leave. That same afternoon, Bijou reports his success to his father Unjo, who is still in Nerigos at the time. 6. On Mingyeong's birthday they invited several Hebrew noblemen to the party. Her brother Bijou wanted to make use of the occasion to promote his new position as an foreign ambassador in Egypt. The party lasted 3 days. There was a lot of wine, olives, salads and honey breads for the guests. There were also servants from King Herod's palace on the party. Even though the party was meant as a birthday party, Mingyeong wasn't the center of attention. On the 3rd day of the feast a young writer passed through Herodium. His name was Rishiahu Jedediahu Rahithus. He's a Judea from an Israelite town in Thracia. He used the Greek name Philip on his passport. He has just returned from his journey to some cities in Somalia. He heard of the feast and he passed by to check it out. While he stood outside and witnessed the hard music inside, a soldier approached him. Salat. And what brings you here? In Greek. Salat, he gives the eagle's greet. I am just passing through. You know the Hermetic sign. The soldier was surprised. Did you serve in the army? I served for 2 years at the Navy in Macedonia. And I served as a spy for an expedition through Oricum. What brings you to this place? I am sojourning. I'm on my way to Egypt, but I will remain several days in Judea first. Get inside the party. I'll say you belong to me. Philip enters the party. He takes some of the wine and ends up in a corner that's decorated with flowers and statues. After a while he notices a young slim woman, with Asian features, standing at a water vessel. She is wearing a long robe of fine lye and some golden sandals. Philip wastes no time. In Greek, good morning. Who are you? The woman stands still and doesn't answer. Not. Speak Greek well, she answered, and shies away and drinks from the water vessel. She then asks in Judea, are you a Jew? Philip is surprised. You speak Judea. That's great. Yes, I'm a Jew. Why do you speak Greek then? I grew up in Thracia. Greek is the spoken language there. My parents migrated to Thrace to avoid legal prosecution by the Jewish authorities. So, I don't reveal my identity so easily. Ah, okay. She picks a grape and eats it. Do you know Bijo? Who's Bijo? My brother. He's the ambassador of our homeland. Where are you from? From Samhan. Sam what? Samhan. It means the 3 countries in my language. It's a small collection of small village states on the Gojoseon Peninsula, at the east of the big Chinese Empire. We are a very small people. How did you learn Judea? There are Israelite rabbis that live within Samhan. The Israelites are very few, yet they are good employees to the rich farmers. I learned some Judea from an Israelite friend of mine some years back. It's an easy language to learn and interesting history. Well, his part of history isn't that great. We've been occupied by the Greeks for a while now. And when Rome began ruling Greece, we received that tyrant Herod as a client king. Nobody wants him. That bastard murdered half of my relatives, because of the alleged crime of one of my uncles, which was never proven at all. So my parents fled to Thracia, due the provincial autonomy of that area within the Roman state. I grew up over there, so I didn't remember much of Judah. Well, here I am now. You really have a grudge against that man? Who, Herod? Number? Not a grudge. I'm just realistic. I don't want to have anything to do with that man. Almost nobody in Judah wants that. You use the historical name Judah and not Judea. Sure I am. I don't recognize these heathen pigs that are occupying my homeland as our legitimate rulers. I will not resist them militarily, because I will lose. Nevertheless, I will not praise Rome either. At the other hand, the presence of the Roman legions does provide internal peace around the Mediterranean, so I guess I have to look at it from both sides. Before the Romans it wasn't all sugar and cake around here either. At least now, Nobody attacks us nor kidnaps our people to some foreign far land. In Samhan we are often bothered by the Chinese that come and go. But they never attack us because we are militarily so insignificant. So we got used to them. My name is also from Chinese Han origin. Mingyeong. Call me Philip. Philip. 7. Philip still remembered his time as a spy in the Kingdom Oricum. He used to mislead criminals into traps so they could be arrested by the authorities. He did this work for 5 years and afterwards he quit. He didn't want to remain in Oricum due to it being far removed from the sea. Also, the Celts and Germans in the kingdom were hostile towards foreigners, even to Romans. After 2 years and 5 months of military service in Macedonia and 5 years and 2 weeks of government service with the legionaries, he said the army goodbye and he returned to Thrace. His parents were deceased when he arrived. It happened 5 months before his service in Oricum ended. Nobody in the army reported it unto him. He decided to pay for the removal of their bodies unto the land of Judea. They were buried at the shores of Judea near the olive trees. He refused to become bitter and he chose to travel far away from Thrace. He traveled by land towards the Sarmatian city Odessa. The city became a Roman protectorate and the civilians had Latin rights and some of the elite even became Roman citizens. From there he traveled throughout Sarmatia. He even visited the north of the Sarmatia regions, near the Baltic Sea. After 2 years he decided to move towards Egypt in the hope to find work over there. He longed for a warm climate. In Oricum he learned about the brutal tactics of the Roman state. They spy on people and trap them in accusations for things they didn't do. Often those people will be blackmailed into spying on someone else close to them for the state. In this manner they managed to execute 18 people from Oricum, based on loose evidence. The executions did instill great fear among the tribes of Oricum, so the respect for the Roman army increased. Due to the concessions on taxes by the king of Oricum, their country remained economically independent from Rome, even though it was legally a part of the empire. He still remembers the execution of a baker, together with his 5 daughters. The crime was so horrible, and besides that, the Roman authorities permitted the execution to be executed according to local customs. It was really a form of human sacrifice with cannibalism involved. He was enraged due to the injustice, but he kept his mouth shut to prevent him from being arrested. He has decided to begin a new life and to remove himself from his past. The past is gone and he can only redeem the time by being blessed in the present and future. 8. Philip received news of conspiracy to overthrow the governor in Egypt. For this reason he decided not to travel to Egypt yet. Unjo was already in Egypt as the new ambassador and his father had traveled all the way from Nerigos to see the embassy. Mingyeong is staying with a few Samhan people and her 2 Batavia friends in an apartment near Herodium. Philip has rented an apartment right across the corner. He works as a cleaner at the military camp nearby. He receives 3 denarii and 15 asses each day. He is paid on every Sabbath the day he refused to work. He works together with the slaves that are present. Because of his past as a soldier his wages are more than the average employee. After 5 weeks of work his employer, a centurion, fires him and gives him 12 aureus, golden coins, as a payoff. The centurion did this to save Philip's life. Some of Herod's bodyguards rumored about a Thracian Jew that wanted to take vengeance for his relative's blood that Herod shed 14 years ago. So, Philip returned to his apartment. One evening he was walking through the village when he noticed Mingyeong again. "You are not joining your brother in Egypt." He was carrying some bags with figs in it. "I am sure that his embassy has all the luxury you would delight in. I am not interested in that. Besides, it's a comfortable country here." Comfortable? Philip became frightened. "Judah, you got to be kidding me." "Yeah. It is. This region has such a rich history. And a lot of blood that was shed on this place, and probably more will be shed in the near future." "What are your plans?" "Plans? Yeah. You are here with some countrymen of yours and those 2 German friends." "I don't have any plan. I might join Bijo soon. Or return back to Nerigos, to be with my father." "Your father is in Nerigos?" "That's far away. Only 14 days traveling." "That's a lot. Try to travel to Samhan. It will take 6 weeks from here." "Good luck." Ha ha ha. Philip eats a fig. "I understand you. You have plans." "Philippos. I too go to Egypt soon for work. I prefer not to remain in Judah. I don't trust his place. It's filled with rivals and backbiters. My uncle was betrayed by a distant female cousin that was jealous of him. So, I've learned not to trust my own kin too quickly." "That's why you go to Egypt?" "Yes. And from Egypt I can easily to go Nigeria." "Nigeria? That's a region at the southern Atlantic coast in Western Africa. There are millions of Judeans living there. I'm not sure if I want to go all the way to Nigeria. I probably will only go as far as the south of Egypt." "Why don't you join my brother? Mingyeong proposes he will have a job for you, I'm for sure." They are interrupted by a harsh sound. It's the sound of bandits. "Get inside. Quickly." He grabs her and rushes into his own house. Right after they are inside, a group of 30 men with swords enter the village and plunder everything, including trespassing into houses. Philip's apartment has a small basement, so he hides in there. There's a lot of screaming and shouting outside. When they leave, the 2 go outside. The damage is big. There are some corpses around. The 2 German friends of Mingyeong find them. They are crying and totally upset. 5 of the countrymen of Mingyeong are dead. 9. The killing of the Koreans did upset Bijo a lot. Immediately he sent chariots to pick up the remainder of them that were present. Philip joined them on pressure of the German friends of Mingyeong. The bodies of the deceased were placed into a ship to be shipped to Nerigos, and from there to be shipped back to Samhan. It took 2 days before the chariot arrived with the remainder at the embassy. There were 5 days of mourning at the embassy. After the days of mourning, Philip became suspicious. How come that a band of robbers attack a village so close to the military camp? He thought, how come that not one of the soldiers who police the region didn't had any notice of the arriving robbers? Also, the only dead were some of those Koreans. All other people were only robbed. He came to the conclusion after days of pondering that the whole event was a false flag, done by King Herod to scare people into submission. He realized that the issue is bigger than he thought. Philip, one of the Germans, approached him. Bijou wants to speak to you. Philip arrives at the living room of the embassy. The Koreans are seated like Greek philosophers and Bijou is drinking Egyptian beer. Sit down. Philip. He obeys. We have just mourned a cowardly act of the government of Judea. We are not capable of retaliating nor demanding vengeance on our behalf. We do, however, want you to clarify something unto us. He walks towards Philip and looks him into the eyes. How come that you just appeared into the life of our people? Pardon me. Don't he play those games on me? You, by accident, arrived at the party of my younger sister. You became acquainted with us very quickly. And within a few weeks, this happens. This seems too much of a coincidence to me. I am not sure what you're aiming at. Is there anything you need to tell us? Look, men. I grieve whatever happened just as much as you. That piece of trash, there in Jerusalem, that pagan Edomite filth on the throne of Judah, has murdered half of my relatives due to jealousy of one of his slaves. My parents and 2 other relatives had to flee by sea towards Macedonia to be safe from that tyrant. I served in the Roman army and I witnessed many more brutalities that I will not even describe unto you. I'm not your enemy. I have nothing to gain with any conspiracy against your people. I have something against the pseudo-Roman that's ruling Judah. Look. If I wanted to harm you folks, why would I have remained in the same place where the criminals entered? Would I seriously endanger my own life for some government false flag? The men are calmed down. Bijou realizes that Philip has a good point. Look. I'm willingly to assist you guys and support you guys with your trade here in Egypt. Just don't do this anymore. We won't. We wanted to be certain if you are a friend or a foe. Friends are hard to find in this present world, especially in this region. You know, why don't you enlarge your trade with Gaul? Gaul has good shipping connections to Nerigos. That way you can benefit somehow, right? The men consider his advice. While they are talking, a messenger knocks on the door. It's someone from the harbor. Their merchandise has arrived. The men go to the harbor while Bijou and Philip remains behind. 10 minutes later, another messenger arrives, this one with a warning. They speak in Korean and a letter is handed over. It is in both Greek as Chinese writing. Bijou almost collapses. What's going on? Read it yourself. He hands over the Greek version. Ambassador Unjo and His Excellency Bijou. Since a week ago a young noble man from the chiefdom Beach has declared independence from Samhan and founded his own country with him as the king. He has only small gangs that protect his claim. There's great turmoil in Samhan because of this. The man's name is Unjo. He is building a ceremonial city that ought to serve as the capital of his new country. He proposed to join all of Samhan into his new state, with the new village Wasiag as the capital. The village is housed at the Han River, 4 hours removed from the Chinese Sea. Due to these changes you are required now to report to Wasiag, in the name of King Unjo, not in the name of the Samhan Federation. The Samhan Federation might cease to exist soon. Many civilians are moving towards the new ceremonial capital. We request you to pay homage to your new boss and employer, King Unjo of Sipi. A new situation. Why are you so worried about this? We don't know who this Unjo is. We do know about his relatives. His relatives are quite troublesome. If he begins to provoke the Chinese or the other people living on the archipelago, we might become colonized by those greater kingdoms over there. Fret not. You don't know the whole circumstance. This letter took 5 weeks to arrive. So, already 5 weeks there's been a new kingdom over there. Adapt to the situation. There isn't much you can do about it anyway. You rewrite. By the way, if you want, I can bring back your relatives to Samhan. Will you? Yes. This gives a change to also travel to the Far East for the first time. You will have to visit my father first in Nerigos. My younger sister may want to say goodbye to him first. I will. Give me a letter that's sealed for both him and for when I arrive in your new home capital. For the journey I probably will need around 1200 denarius. Because the journey might take about 2 months. I also want to have 500 denarii with me to pay off the people over there when we arrive. What will you do with those Germans? I can drop them off when I pass by Gaul. They live in Batavia, right? That's not a hard thing to do. Be careful. I will. Take it easy, man. You're safe here. There are no invasion here in the Roman Principate. Emperor Augustus' army is very fierce in defending the empire. True to that. 10. Bijou's wife enticed him to make an agreement with Unjo, the king of Sipi, so that they could benefit from the situation. Bijou wanted to discuss it with his father first. 1 week after the arrival of the first cargo there were sailors from Italy that arrived for Bijou. It appeared that Unjo was in Rome and he wanted his family and those in Egypt to join him when he would approach the emperor. The same night Bijou, his wife, all the other Koreans, Mingyeong and her 2 friends, their slaves at the embassy and Philip, enter into the ships. They leave Alexandria heading towards Rome. Mingyeong, her 2 friends and Philip travel in the same ship, together with 5 slaves and the sailors that are transporting them. Philip has his own separate room on the ship. It's not a big deal, 1 bed, 1 desk, 1 window to look outside and a vessel with fruits into them. Also, there are small bottles of spring water from Ethiopia and wine from Gaul in large wine bottles. He looks outside the window. It's already afternoon, it has been almost 20 hours after they've left Egypt. They will pass by Crete the next morning. He is reading some books he received from the Library of Alexandria. These were books written by Hebrews during the end of the Medo-Persian Empire. The writers had written diaries about their daily experiences. He is very pleased to receive these books. The librarians wanted to throw them away, because they aren't considered literature according to the Greek standards. One of the books he's reading is a diary of someone from Hebron, an elder lady named Aliyah, the mother of 9 children, the widow of a tailor. We just received the news how Emperor Artaxerxes has summoned his army of 1,000,000 men from Media to fight against the Macedonian kingdom and Greek city-states. We are not sure how this battle will work out. If the Macedonians and Greeks manage to defeat Artaxerxes' troops, the world will probably become Greek. I'm not sure if I enjoy this idea. I won't live much long anymore, but my grandchildren who just got married will have to endure the political change. Greek scholars are often effeminate. Also, they have the tendency to transliterate our Hebrew terms into effeminate Greek nouns and Macedonian labels. I pray to Yah that this will work out well. He reads another one. We received reports from merchants who reside in Macedonia. King Philip is planning to expand his Macedonian Greek kingdom into the east. He has already begun with annexing small districts of the Medo-Persian Empire. He is provoking the Persian aristocracy into a war. Even though nobody wants to have a war right now. The Medes and the Persians are in intense conflicts concerning land and debts. Also, the kingdoms within the Medo-Persian world are struggling to survive. O Yahweh! Praise save us! He is reminded of some stories Hun uncle used to tell him about the days of Antipater, Herod the Great's father, the Roman governor of Idumea and Judea. During that time many Edomites that were still living in Idumea decided to leave their homeland and they ventured towards Gaul. The immigration was stopped by the naval authorities in Italy. As a solution they began using the label Jew for both Edomites and Israelites together, a practice that continues till this day, but that the Judeans have fought hard against. Now they speak of Edomite Jew or Idumea instead of just Jew when addressing Edomites. The enmity between Edomites and Judeans have calmed down a lot due to them having the same enemy to fight. Nevertheless, the Judeans refuse to allow the Edomites to assimilate and become Judeans just like them. His uncle explained it as follows: the inhabitants of Edom have been enemies of the Israelites ever since the Babylonian captivity. Even though it's already around 550 years ago, there are still scars on the emotional collective memory of the Judea people. It weren't just the Babylonians that harmed our ancestors, it were also the Edomites that plundered us in agreement with the Babylonians. The Edomites also worship pagan gods which are not Yah, so for that reason it's not wise to become one people together with them. It would be a weird marriage. Just as you cannot marry light and darkness, you cannot marry the wicked together with the righteous. It won't work. There are righteous among the Edomites just as they are among all nations and kindred. Nevertheless, the majority of the Edomites, like the other nations, are in enmity against Yah. So we cannot let them share in our heritage which we received from the prophets. They will only misuse it and exploit it at our expense. At that time, before his uncle was assassinated, he didn't think much of it. He was just a young teenager. Now that he is older and has experienced more of life, he discovers that his father and his uncle were quite wise. Furthermore, people seldom let go of their childhood memories or the mental strongholds of their past. That's another thing he realized. When someone remains in idolatry, Idolatry isn't just something they do or participate in. Idolatry has become who they are. 11. When it became night, someone knocked on his door. He opened. It was Mingyeong. "What are you doing here?" "It's quite late." He was quite sleepy. "Let me in." She entered the room and closed the door. She sat at the small desk and saw the books that were opened. "So you're studying?" "Well, you can say that." "Historical diaries. Interesting. Why didn't you become a scholar?" "Me? A scholar? Why not?" She smiles. "You have a big knowledge of literature." "I am not that fond of Greek institutions. You will have to go through a lot of trash in order to be accepted over there. Furthermore, I don't eat any pork." Pork is a favorite meal amongst those groups. "I've been into the army, so I know what I'm talking about." "So, there's no place for me over there. By the way, what are you doing awake at this time?" "We will arrive near the shores of Crete soon. I wanted to see it." "And your window is towards the eastern side. So the shores will be visible from your room." "Ah. Now I understand." She moves towards his bed and she lies upon it on her side, looking outside the small window. She takes off her sandals. "I just took a bath." "Is there a bath on this ship?" Philip was surprised. "In my room there's a tiny bathtub. We warmed water and bathed in it together, me and the 2 Germans. When we are near Crete they will refresh the water supply on the ships, before continuing to Italy." "Ah, I see. The Germans are considering to move towards Mingyeong. They think they might get a better life over there than the life they have in Batavia. They really don't want to return to their hometowns. They report of the corruption that's going on over there. Also, since this year, Emperor Augustus has changed the international laws. From now on, everyone who marries has to marry through a government temple and register into the marital census. Private local institutions by relatives are not permitted nor acknowledged anymore. So people that were married now have to register themselves and their marriage can be annulled by the state only." Other kingdoms and smaller empires outside of the Roman regions are also applying the same thing in their own countries. It is permitted to marry slaves also, but the slaves will not have the same rights as the free persons. Slaves don't get marriage licenses, because they are deemed property. But there are some advantages. If you do marry according to the state, you will get financial benefits. Also, you come on a priority list when you're looking for housing options." "They are doing this?" Philip interrupted. "To promote the population growth of Rome and of the nations within the western provinces of Empire. Italy, Gaul, Spain, Rhaetia and Vidilacia are suffering from a shortage of births. If this continues, within 100 years the population would be 40% less. This will bring trouble for the balance between the west and the east of the empire. There are far more people in the eastern Greek part of the empire than in the western Celtic part of the empire." "Ah. I see. Now I understand. Back in Samhan there are way too many children born. Often they sacrifice a big portion of the children in order to match the food supplies of the communities. This they also do to prevent rivalries between families and villages. They murder a significant portion of the population every year in order to reduce the possibility of power struggles. How many people are there in Samhan? Around 2,200,000 people. I guess. It used to be 1,600,000 about 50 years ago. So yes, the ritual sacrifices have prevented the population from rising till 5 million. It's kind of horrible and creepy when you think about it. 2,700.000 million people sacrificed within 50 years. The Celts have similar practices. But the problem is, a lot of those Celtic kingdoms don't reproduce many children. So, yes, they do practice human sacrifice, but there aren't enough people eventually to select for sacrifice. The Romans have forbidden human sacrifice. This has led to the continuation and increase of diversity among their tribes and a very small increase of their populations. It's a quite insane thing the world is doing. My father was also selected for sacrifice by one of the shamans of our village. In Samhan it's the shamans that are the heads of towns and our legislators. However, due to an unexpected invasion by some Chinese pirates, the ceremony was postponed. My grandparents brought my father in safety by bringing him to a small island away from our town. Due to this, my dad Unjo survived and he grew up and had a family of his own. That's very intense. Yes, it is. I hope that a savior would come into this world to end all this madness. 12. At the same moment a big wind blew against the sails of the ship and they speeded towards the shores of Crete. They shook a while. But none of the cargo fell nor broke, despite high waves. We are moving faster. Mingyeong mentions the wind is hard. Hold on to something. I have the idea that we might get to shore earlier than planned. He grabs her hand and sits next to her, while he holds onto the frame of the room. Hold on. After several minutes of moving here and fro, the captain announced that they will go to land. Within a half hour they landed at a small harbor of a small coastal town. The 5 other ships stop a few kilometers away on the beaches. The night is too stormy to remain sailing. The other ships are rowed onto the harbor too, despite the hard wind. The Koreans seek their refuge in the town's hostels. The 2 Germans, Mingyeong, Philip and one Egyptian slave boy take one and the same room due to shortage of rooms in the place. The price was 3 denarii. Mingyeong paid it and she also paid for breakfast, 40 asses. The 2 men slept at the door, in case someone would try to break in. The women sleep on the 2 beds that available. Around 4 in the morning, Mingyeong woke up. She couldn't sleep anymore. It was still storming. She took the key and left the room. She only wore a long white robe, bound with a blue belt around her belly, and her red sandals. Also she had a purse with some very small tubes in them. She went downstairs. The reception was closed. There was nobody around. So she walked around. There were many tables and chairs. The ground heater was working, which made the whole building warm. Behind the bar there were all kinds of alcoholic drinks. The front door was closed. There were also lamps burning all around for illumination. She then saw a hidden door. Well, it was behind some plants. She walked towards it and opened it. It wasn't locked. Inside it was a bit dark, so she took one of the small lamps and some olive oil she had in her purse and poured it into it for brighter light. She walked into what seemed to be a kind of tunnel with the stairs downwards. At the end she came into some underground pond and there was wood around, so she lighted some torches and placed them on their standards. It was a small pond and there were some scrolls in an open wardrobe. She walked towards it and opened one of them. It was a map of the Chinese Empire, with detailed names of places in both Chinese and Greek. Another scroll was a map of her homeland, Samhan, with rivers and mountains appointed in detail. Also there were 129 towns appointed on the map. She checked the date. The map was only 5 years old. It was made by some Spanish cartographer named Julius Cartagus Vespers who lived in Peking, Chinese capital, for 19 years and afterwards 7 years in a Samhan district. The map was meant for the authorities in both Rome, Alexandria, Jerusalem and Olisipo. The map she was holding was a copy. And when she checked into the wardrobe there were more versions of the same map. The place had a lot of dust. Obviously, nobody has been in here for years. She looks further in the wardrobe. She encounters a little sack with some coins in it. When opening it, she sees that they are Chinese silver coins, dating from around 100 years ago. 17 pieces of silver. She is curious where the pond will end. She takes off all her clothes and jumps into the ponds. She swims downwards and finds a way out into the shores. When she comes above water, after a short 2 minutes, she can see the harbor and parts of the town. It's still raining hard. She decides to swim back. Back inside she dries herself with some old papyrus paper that's not used, gets dressed and leaves the place the same way she entered, but she took the Chinese silver and 2 maps with her. When she closed the door, she quickly places the plants back onto their place. Her feet were dry so there were no footprints left on the floor when she walked. She returned to their room. Nobody noticed anything when she opened the door. She then realized that people would begin to ask questions if seeing her with the 2 scrolls and with the silver. So she quickly left through the window of the CAF copyright symbol and placed them into their ship, in the room of Philip, between his book collection. Before leaving, she took a wine bottle and drank some of it. 13. The next morning everyone eats breakfast before returning to the ships. There was no damage to the sails. It was a miracle. They entered back into their ships. The Koreans bought some food in town and loaded it. Around 10 in the morning they sailed on towards Italy. The wind was strong and in their favor today. It would take 3 days before they would reach the southern Cape of Italy, that's at the opposite side of the island Sicily. After 8 hours of sailing they leave the island of Crete behind and are on the Ionian Sea. The wind is still in their favor. The sun is shining bright at the moment, with almost no clouds in the sky. At least there's no rain. Folks are relieved. Philip is not aware of what Mingyeong did. He did encounter one of the maps between the scrolls. He was surprised. I didn't knew I brought these with me. He opens it and finds a detailed map of a country named Gogiso written in Latin. It was a country in the Far East. He recognized the same Samhan and the Han River. It's a Spanish map, made by a lawyer and cartographer from Betica, that's southern Spain. He goes outside and sees Mingyeong. Mingyeong, come see this. She enters his room. He shows the map. She pretends to be surprised. Oh my! That's my homeland. Yes, it is. I found it today. I didn't knew they also gave me this at the library. So beautiful. Do you have more? Well, go ahead and check it out. I'll be talking to the captain. Sure. When he left, she immediately picked the small sack with Chinese silver and placed her in her own bag. She picked the other map and placed it on his desk. She leaves and grabs a grape and eats it, while standing in the sunlight. 14. When they reached Italy, they stopped at a Sicilian town named Messi. There they refreshed themselves, before continuing with their 4-day journey to the capital of the world, Rome. At Messi, Mingyeong convinces her 2 best friends to become part of her household. After that they continued on the sea. After 4 days and 7 hours they reached the Tiber River. They spot over 500 ships sailing in the area. Wow! This is it. Roma. Center of the world. Great sight. They parked in a commercial harbor. The same day they met with Unjo. Unjo was glad to see his father again. The same counts for Mingyeong. The next morning they appear before the court of Emperor Augustus. The walls are decorated with paintings, around the pillars there are many Greek statues, also there are fountains all around. There are many armed guards also whom are forbidden to interact with anyone walking in the court. Unjo and Unjo are both dressed formally, the other Koreans are dressed in their traditional Samhan clothes. This to show who the important ones of the group are. The women, including the Germans, wear traditional Samhan clothes too. And Philip is dressed as always, nothing special. The group is commanded to stay behind while Unjo and Unjo walk into the front. After a while the emperor walks in. Hail Caesar! Everyone in the court stands up and face Augustus. He speaks in Latin. Salute everyone. Everyone else sits down when he is seated, except the guards and the 2 ambassadors. As I've understood, you both come from far, from the recent established Kingdom City and the aged Confederation Samhan. What can Rome mean for you? Your Majesty. Our country has been through a revolution. There are changes going on both on a domestic level as on an international level. We long to extend our foreign relations towards Rome, and we would like to make a bilateral agreement between the city of Rome and the capital Mingyeong, of Sipi and Samhan. Our interests are economic and cultural. We desire to hire professionals from the Roman Principate into our capital to contribute to the construction of our country. Also, we would like to trade our products on the Roman market. What kind of products do you offer? We offer Chinese silver, pottery, glass products, clothes, slaves, rice, cuisine and exotic fruits from the Far East. Good. As I've understood, your country is heavily influenced by the Chinese Han dynasty. Am I correct? Yes, sir. In that case, I'm willingly to establish a bilateral agreement between the Roman state and your country Sipi. On the condition that a large portion of your people, around 8,000 people, will emigrate to Italy and remain here as a ransom. These people will live in a small town which will be constructed by the Senate. Also, your country will build a small village that will serve as a Roman colony near your capital. In that village Roman law will apply, and your country must cooperate militarily with the troops that will be assigned to that colony to secure the safety of the Roman citizens. Latin citizens and other employees that will reside and live within that colony. The village will be constructed by Greek construction workers whom I will choose. Also, there will be continual interaction through diplomats between Rome and Sipi. Do you agree with these terms?
Yes, sir.
We agree. Good. The lawyers will write down the treaties and within 2 hours you will be called into the Supreme Court in order to sign the treaty. The treaty will be active 7 weeks from now, which will give you time to decide how to arrange the matters between your country and Rome. The emperor stands up to leave. Everyone stands up. 15. Bijou makes himself ready to leave. His wife and 4 other Koreans, together with Mingyeong, her 2 German friends and Philip will join him. The journey by road to his homeland will be 21 full days. The chariots they've rented were expensive, but of excellent quality. The roads they will use are not the conventional roads that the Greeks often use, but they are the local tribal roads in the northern regions of Asia and Europe. Within 14 days they already passed the Ural Mountains and 6 days later they reached the end of Manchuria, which crosses with the region of their own country. When they crossed the river border, they encountered some peasants that wanted to join them. They declined. Instead, they maintained their course towards the west of the Han River, there the new capital is allegedly located. The road system is quite aged and ineffective in their homeland. We really should persist that Unjo will invest more into these roads. They are very uncomfortable. You can't expect much here. This isn't Rome. That doesn't matter. This is very painful when it comes to trade. No questions about that. You retelling the truth. This may be one of the reasons why commerce had decreased since the fall of the Ji kingdom. Maybe this is one of the reasons the Ji dynasty fell. Indeed. There's a lot that we need to learn. We shouldn't become a copy of Rome either. I mean, yes. I agree. The Greeks and Romans are highly influential. Highly influential. They are the world power at the moment. I know. I'm just saying that we shouldn't give up our own culture and become like a copy of Rome. When it comes to roads and commerce we will integrate, but we will not permit them to change our way of life. I mean, we are from Gojaso, not from Macedonia. I agree with what he said. And also, the Romans also have many defects in their empire. The imbalance between the East and West in population and economic resources is something that in the near future might cause the collapse of that big empire. If that ever happens, it will affect us also. That's in the far future. We shouldn't worry about those things. What matters now is that we build up our own country and make it effective and pleasant for everyone in it. We will have to build defenses against those Chinese that bother us. We need the favor of the Chinese emperor. So no way we can see his empire as our enemy. We will need to keep peace with all surrounding countries if we ever want to prevent being colonized. True. Those countries that become annexed by the former Roman Republic were unstable countries, filled with division and internal conflicts. Divide and conquer, and when you've conquered you divide and rule. That's the language of the Romans. And it works. It works. We need to generate a synchronized culture within Samhan and we have to make everyone feel included. I agree. The way things are now, I mean, this Unjo guy just decided to found his own country. He had the money and the thugs on his side. So he managed to do it. But many others can do the same. And then you will have internal wars concerning which country will remain. That whole idea makes me sad. Well, this is the world. We can't see into the future. This Unjo may be one of the unifying figures for our country. Let's wait and see. When they came past a group of soldiers they were stopped. In Korean. Who are you? We are diplomats who returned from Rome. Roma. Yes, Rome. We need to speak to King Unjo as soon as possible. All right. Go straight on this road. After 4 hours you'll arrive. 16. They arrived at Wazayag and the king was glad to receive them. Unjo signed the treaty and immediately sent many merchants and politicians towards Rome. Also, Unjo immediately paid Bijou 17 pieces of silver as a bribe to keep his loyalty. Mingyeong still had the Chinese silver with her. She picked up the map and checked all the places. She took one of the coins and paid some builders to construct a small village of 14 extended houses for her. Within 3 weeks the village was completed. She went to King Unjo and paid 1 Chinese silver coin in order to acknowledge her village city rights. The king was surprised by her actions and a bit suspicious. But due to the developments in his country he gave in to her requests. She paid another silver coin in order for people to lay several roads and streets in the village. The village was located near a small stream, because of that there was continual supply of fresh water, and an escape into the larger rivers for their poop and other waste. After 2 months the village was fully completed. Philip visited the small town and he was impressed. This is my new home. Why so many rooms? It's for relatives. The two walk through the town. Come. She invites him into one of the houses. Inside, the house has furniture and a food supply. This is my personal residence. How did you finance all of this? You remember that hostel on Crete, where we stranded? Yeah. During the night I went to pee. I noticed a hidden door behind some plants. It was only because I noticed it. You wouldn't have guessed there was a door. So I became curious and went inside. After a small tunnel there was a small inland pond and in there were some books and maps. I checked them out. The place was very dusty. Also the door was dusty. I'm not even sure if the hostel owners were aware that door existed. Anyway, I took 2 of the maps and there was a small bag with Chinese silver coins dating from 100 years ago. So I hid them on the ships and placed the maps in your room. You did what? Yeah. If I would have taken it to my own they might asked questions. So I hid them between your books. That explains it. When we crossed into this region, I remembered the map so I thought about building my own home. So that's what I did after Bijou spoke with the king. Well done. I did. She picked some Korean coins and give it to him. Let's go back to Wazayag. We are going to have a party tonight.